A $500 drone just erased a $1.3 billion lifeline. Not a guess, diesel, rails, and an entire corridor taken off the map in minutes. You clicked for the train strike, you're getting the playbook. We'll break down the 5-drone choreography, the Mavic Scout, the FPVs with shaped charges, and the thermal overwatch that turned a moving target into a rolling inferno. Why the 5th and 6th cars? How do you trigger a chain reaction on steel? Stay with me, by the end, you'll know how a logistics kill outclasses a vehicle kill every single day. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. 1 weak link on a moving train decided an entire front's fuel flow. Which car would you hit to shut down a corridor? The rail line ran like a main artery along the Zaporizhia axis, feeding armor, artillery, and field generators. Fuel in motion sounds safer than a depot, but it isn't. A depot is guarded, grid, and static. A train rolls through gaps, past batteries, past radar seams, past crews on smoke breaks, so for a few miles it's naked.
That the Ukrainian Defense Forces destroyed a Russian freight train with fuel in occupied part of Zaporizhia region. Reports suggest that Russian freight train has derailed after an explosion rocked this particular place. In fact, this specific freight train.
Hit it there and you don't just burn fuel, you jam the route and force reroutes that bleed time and tempo. But the window is tight. Partial air defense coverage overlaps in patches. Electronic warfare drifts across the corridor. You get minutes inside an 18-mile gap where radar is thin and crews rotate. That's your kill window. Miss it and the serpent slides back under umbrellas and spoofed skies. How do you find that sliver? Ground eyes. Farmers who know when the siding fills before dawn. Teachers who hear the late horns and note when patrols idle by the crossing. Mechanics who see the same crew truck stop on Tuesdays, then vanish for 40 minutes. They mapped loading times, counted patrol gaps, and watched the radar mast rotate on a lazy cycle. Over a week, those habits draw a box on the map where the train is both exposed and predictable. Now the logic of the 5th and 6th cars. You don't aim for the head, the locomotive can decouple and crawl. You don't hit the tail, crews can push or pull it clear.
Showing that Ukraine can indeed perform well on the battlefield.
He's claimed on Telegram that there is no longer Russian railway communication through occupied Zaporizhia region.
Mid-train splits the consist, strands both halves, and traps heat between loaded neighbors. Fuel spills overlap. Heat has nowhere to vent. Steel bows. Coupling seize. A single burn becomes a chain fire that locks the rails in place and cooks the bed under them. The economics are brutal and simple. You trade expendable drones in the $500 to $2,000 range for a train's worth of diesel that feeds multiple battalion groups. This is logistics return on investment, not a glamour strike. You're buying days of stalled armor, quiet generators, and guns that can't displace. It only works if your eyes don't shout. Sensor fusion solves that. You start with satellite cues that flag recent movement. Add thermal signatures that show which cars are loaded and how tight they ride. Then a forward scout with a quiet 20 MP camera and a small thermal core schemes the route, confirms spacing and load density, and never blasts a loud signal. Small optics, short bursts, low risk. You have the window.
I think Zelensky understandably wants to show that there are still strong Ukrainian forces there that can match the strength of the Russians.
That in the occupied Zaporizhia region, invaders and an ammunition depot which Russia had transferred to the Zaporizhia front were hit.
You picked the 2 cars. The clock is moving. But Russia's jammers throw mud into the airwaves and twist satellite data. GPS drifts. Control links wobble. Smoke and spoofing try to erase shape and heat. This is where targeting logic has to beat noise. At 4:55 a.m., first gray light slips in and the serpent rolls into the zone. The lead cue says green. The mid-train cars are loaded and aligned. The strike team commits. One hit splits the train. The next turns overlap into compounding heat. Rails warp. Ties break. The line doesn't just burn, it stops being a line. By striking the right two cars in that short stretch, Ukraine didn't just light fuel, they severed a billion-dollar route for weeks. Repair crews need time, gear, and cover they don't have. Every hour the track stays warped multiplies the effect up and down the axis. Now the window is open.
So the latest offensive by the Ukrainian forces, coming a day after talks were held at the White House, is coming in. Reports that have surfaced which suggest that the Ukrainian Defense Forces destroyed a Russian freight train.
Watch 5 drones act like one brain, slip through jamming and smoke, and land 3 hits on a moving target before the umbrella closes again. If GPS lies and the airwaves are dirty, how do cheap drones still land 3 precision hits on a moving target? The team is simple on paper. A modified Mavic scout up front calls the order. 3 FPV strike birds sit behind it, tuned for speed and climb. A second Mavic floats on standby, ready to swap in if the lead drops. Above them, a larger UAV streams thermal, a quiet lantern that keeps the big picture alive without yelling its position. But then the jammers wake up. Russian outclass systems smear the band with noise and push fake GPS control links wobble. Latency flickers. The train nose slides into the kill zone right on time, and the operators have seconds to trust code and drills over comfort. You feel the air go heavy. You move anyway. The scout earns its keep first. It frames the consist, tags tanker curves, and reads heat load along the string. Warm engine, hotter mid-body, cooler tail. Car order set. The call goes out fast, windows defined. FPV-1 dips to a shallow line, aiming for the car that tightens spill overlap. FPV-2 lags by a breath to the next mark. FPV-3 arcs opposite bearing, threading the farther car to lock both halves in place without overflying the hottest plume. Resilience keeps them honest. When the spectrum turns to gravel, the links skip across channels, hopping fast enough that a jam can't pin them for long. If the noise spikes, they kick to an L-band backup, a slower, stubborn pipe that rides under the worst of it. And if the whole link dies, inertial and visual NAV take over. Gyros and accelerometers hold the line while the camera keeps the world in frame. Autonomy does the quiet work. Onboard vision hunts geometry that doesn't lie. Tanker curvature pops as clean arcs. The gap under couplings throws a repeat shadow. Thermal bloom leaks from loaded shells, even through smoke that tries to mask it. The algorithm isn't fooled by a fake GPS point, it cares about what the lens sees and the shape it expects. Edges, arcs, glint. That's the lock. First impact lands clean and low. The shaped charge bites, vents heat inward, and turns the car into a pressure oven. Vapors flash. The lid wants to breathe, but heat stacks between neighbors and feeds the burn. The second hit staggers in and slams the next car. Spill zones overlap. The gap that would have cooled the fire is now a bridge of flame. The third drone comes from the far side and threads the eighth car, sealing the trap. Both halves of the steel serpent stop dead. Heat does the rest. Rails pull out of true. Ties char and lose bite. Ballast cooks and shifts. Crews can't just drag this mess off and wave a green flag. You don't salvage at a site that hot and that unstable. You cordon, you wait, you bring heavy kit you don't have in reach. Count the effect without hype. Hundreds of tons of diesel catch. Multiple cars go up within minutes. The line isn't passable without crews, cranes, sections of rail, and days of safe time to work under threat. That's tempo taken off the board by gear that costs less than a single armored vehicle's engine rebuild. A swarm worth a used car forces a logistics pause that tubes and shells might not secure on command. Sensors, code, and a calm hand inside a headset beat a battery's lucky hour. That's the edge, precision, timing, and the nerve to fly through noise. With the artery blown and the corridor warped, this is where logistics math starts to turn. Units stall, convoys reroute, and commanders reshuffle fuel just to keep guns warm. Now see what that delay does to redeployments and the pace of fire. Precision wins wars. A logistics kill starves movement and fire, and it does it with cheap drones steered by smart intel. Not flash. Effect. You watched a steel serpent freeze because sensors made timing, and timing made fire. This is the shift. Target the fuel, the rail, the rhythm that keeps guns fed. Comment your choice below, 5th, 6th, or the locomotive. What would you hit for a corridor kill? If you want this kind of analysis on every raid that shifts tempo, subscribe. The battlefield is sensors, signals, and timing. Steel follows data. More raids will prove it. And you'll see how tempo bends when supply breaks.